Welcome to day 32 and 33 of our study through the Bible in community here on YouTube. And if we're going to be covering Genesis 25 and 26 today. And if you want to go ahead and jump back to day 1, you can do so through the cards or the description down below. Look for the playlist link, Study Through the Bible. We are people with a free gift where we ground believers in their identity in Christ and equip them to reach those caught in religion. And so let's go ahead and jump in. Yesterday, or the last 2 days' assignments, day 32, read Genesis 25, 1 through 20, and note the ages of Abraham and Isaac, and list what you learned about Abram, Isaac, and Ishmael. Day 33, read Genesis 25, 19 through 26, 35, and list what you learn about Isaac, Jacob, and Esau. Also note any references to age, and also mark any occurrence of the words covenant and oath. And so I'm going to share with you some things that I gleaned out of these passages, these two chapters. And the first thing is in Genesis 25:1. It says, "Then again, Abram took a wife, and her name was Keturah." So you have Abram, and I don't know exactly why he's doing this, except that, you have Sarai who died, and you have Hagar who was just sent off to who knows where at this point, and so he doesn't have a wife at this point, and so he marries Keturah. But technically, you could say in every way, shape, and form that Abram was a polygamist. Now, we talked about this back a few chapters back, but every time the Bible mentions polygamy, it's never portrayed in a positive light or something that God recommends, ordains, or anything like that. Of the kings, God specifically told them not to multiply wives. And in general, every time it's mentioned, it doesn't play out well. There's never a good story that comes out of polygamy. So I just wanted to say that. Verse 5 and 6, Abram gave all that he had unto Isaac, but unto the sons of the concubines which Abram had, gave gifts and sent them away from Isaac his son. And so this is the part that doesn't make sense about the account of Abraham and him going ahead and marrying again and then having children with Keturah, because he doesn't treat his children the same. Isaac is clearly the son of the promise, the messianic line. And he learned that horrible lesson when he went into Hagar and gave birth to Ishmael. That's still haunting the Israelites to this day. And yet he marries again and he has more children, but then he doesn't treat them the same as Isaac. He gives everything to Isaac and he sends them away so that they're living somewhere completely separate from Isaac. It's an odd situation, and this is really, honestly, this section is where the family of the Messianic line becomes like the most dysfunctional family that you can imagine. And we're going to get more into this as we go on from Abram onto Isaac, onto Jacob and Esau, and then the 12 tribes of Israel. Man, it's going to get sorted. So here we go. And verse 8, it says, Abram gave up the ghost and died. Okay? And this is an interesting thing because you have two different things. The give up the ghost is a separate word from died. And so it talks really about like the two separate things that happen when we die. One is obviously our physical body dies. And then it becomes, it rots, it goes into the ground, but then it has this other phrase, this other Hebrew word that happens over and over and over again when people die in the Old Testament, and that it says they gave up the ghost. So that part, that soul, that eternal part of you, that breath of life, that spirit that is God-given and unique to humanity, that goes back and it's given up. It goes back to where it comes. And so we are all eternal beings. We always have been. The question is where your eternity is going to be spent. Is it going to be spent with God or apart from God? And that's really the distinction. We want to talk about heaven and hell, but that's really what it is. Heaven is going to be with God forever, and hell is being separated from God forever. And so in the presence of God is everything good, and apart from the presence of God, exclusive from the presence of God, is the absence of anything good. And so you make your choice where you want to go and spend your eternity. Verse 16 and 17, these are the sons of Ishmael, 12 princes according to their nations. And I thought that was interesting that Ishmael also gives birth to 12 sons who become the heads over 12 nations of their own, because you have the 12 tribes of Israel. And we'll be getting more into that as we keep going on in Genesis and onward. Genesis 25:21, Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And so we have, again, a miraculous birth, so to speak. You have a barren woman who puts it in the hands of God, and then God delivers and comes through for her. And that was really big in that culture. They saw being barren as being cursed from God, as being stricken by God. And the fact that, Rebekah was in that state, and she's supposed to be a type of the church, and all these things that we talked about before. Then she prays, and then God delivers. And she also, this is significant because she was in that messianic line. Isaac was the son of promise. And so if he doesn't have any kids with Rebekah, and that's going to be another sordid tale of how that all plays out. But, if he doesn't have kids with Rebekah, particularly a male, then that would be the end of the messianic line, which would be bad news. So God obviously hears her prayers and answers. Genesis 25:22, the children struggle together within her. And she says, what's going on? And God says, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from your bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. So, from birth, and take note of this, they're struggling within the womb. They're already fighting. They're already quarreling. And so there's going to be drama in the womb, during their birth, and during their childhood that lasts into their adulthood. Jacob and Esau, these 2 twins, are going to have some problems. Now, in the prophecy, before they're born, God clearly says the older will serve the younger. But nobody seems to believe that, want that, trust that, and that's the whole sordid tale that we're going to get into. But God declared that's what is going to be. Now, nobody ever got to figure out how God was going to bring that to pass, because they all took matters into their own hands to either try and make that happen or try and not make that happen. Verse 25 and 26, the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau, which means hairy. Right? It's like the first guy named Harry. His brother came out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name is called Jacob, which, guess what, means heel catcher. Like perfect naming opportunity right there. And can you imagine that? Like, could you imagine you're giving birth to twins, one comes out, and then an arm reaches out from the womb and actually grabs the hold of the other one's, leg. That's great. That's Jacob, right? So you got this. He's feisty coming out of the womb, right? And he's going to be a troublemaker, believe me. So verse 27, Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents. And so, manly man versus kind of like, mama's boy, kind of hanging around the house. He doesn't really like the outdoors. I know those are all really stereotypes, and honestly, I'm more like Jacob in that sense than I am like Esau. But that's the way that we kind of typically think, and they definitely thought that way and in that day. Verse 28, and Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Okay, this is never a good plan. When you have the dad playing favorites with one kid, and then you have the mom, the wife, playing favorites with another kid, never going to turn out well. Just saying. And so this was a really dysfunctional part and dynamic of their family. And so, you see at this point, this whole love story of Isaac and Rebekah, a type of Jesus in the church, and when they fall in love and they get married, everything's great. But, by this time, Isaac doesn't seem like he's that good of a dude, honestly. And, Rebecca doesn't seem that great either because, she's willing to connive and cheat and lie to her husband and involve her children in the process. But they're playing favorites here. Never a good idea. Verse 31, sell me this day your birthright. Esau said, behold, I am at the point to die, and what profit shall this birthright do to me? He swore unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Jacob. Esau despised his birthright. And so you got this sordid tale. This was, first part of Jacob's plotting. Okay, Esau goes out for hunt. He doesn't catch anything. He comes home, he's starving. And so he says he's starving, kind of like in America we say we're starving. We're not starving. Neither was Esau, really. He wasn't going to die. This was in God's hands, okay? And so he has the birthright naturally, or normally he would have the birthright because he's the firstborn. But God already said that wasn't supposed to be the case. So the fact that they were still raising up the kids and Isaac was insisting and all this kind of stuff, in spite of the fact that God prophesied, that's problem number one. Problem number two is now Jacob's going to try and steal or try and trick. He's like used car salesman kind of maneuver on Esau. Esau's really hungry. Jacob made some awesome stew, and Esau goes, give me some. And, typical, brothers that you're just not looking out for each other and wanting the worst for each other, right? And so Jacob goes, sell me your birthright. At that point, Esau should have said, I can find food elsewhere. And this is why the Bible says he despised his birthright. He didn't care at all about it. He didn't care about the things of God. He didn't care about the birthright. He didn't care about the Messianic line. He didn't care about any of that. And so naturally God didn't want him to have it. But Jacob would never find that out because Jacob gets Esau to give him his birthright, to sell him his birthright trade for a bowl of stew. How ridiculous is that? Okay, so going on, and the Lord appeared unto him and said, do not go down into Egypt and dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you, and I will bless you. For unto thee and unto your seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swore unto Abraham your father. And I will make your seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto your seed all these countries, and in your seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. And so you got the promise being given to Isaac, okay, and this is after the whole sordid tale of what goes on with the birthright stuff, and then we're going to get into more later on because there's a second portion that has to do with the blessing that, once again, Rebekah and Jacob team up to connive, to trick Isaac. And so 26:7, and the man of the place asked him of his wife, and he said, she is my sister, for he feared to say, she is my wife, lest, said he, the man of the place should kill me for Rebekah, because she was fair to look upon. Did somebody hear this somewhere, or maybe in like family stories, or is this kind of a common thing that people did in this day? Because Abraham did this twice. Now Isaac is repeating the same sins as his father. The same mistakes, the same not trusting God, all of that. He's not trusting him. And he asked Rebekah, the one that he was so in love with, he asked her to say, you are my sister. You have the same thing happen. God protects Rebekah, protects Isaac, and then they get called out by the pagan nations around them. Genesis 26:34, Esau took to wife Judith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Bashmath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, which were a grief of mine unto Isaac and to Rebekah. And I think that's just funny, that now, Esau gets married to two different girls, which again, kind of repeating the same sins as the parents, and that neither of the girls are liked by Isaac or Rebekah, which tells me that he did not go for the arranged marriage thing. He just went out, got them, and he did his own thing. And so again, he's just doing his own thing. He's going his own way. He doesn't care anything about the things of God or really care about his family. He's out for himself. And so if there's any insights or questions that you have that I didn't cover today, put them in the comments down below. And I'll be choosing some of those for the weekly Q&A at the end of the week. And so day 34, your assignment, read Genesis 27 and mark every occurrence of the word. Bless and its synonyms. Carefully observe the actions of Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Esau. And also note the differences in their individual blessings. And so if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up on this video if you like the content for today. And share this with others who want to study the Bible. Help get them the resources they need, the questions, the answers to their questions, and let's do it in community here on YouTube. And until next time, may God's grace be with you.